The moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God, and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence. Not only every juror's right but his duty, to find the verdict according to his own best understanding, judgment, and conscience, though in direct opposition to the direction of the court. The only maxim of a free government ought to be to trust no man living with power to endanger the public liberty. Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. Remember, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. It is in vain to say that democracy is less vain, less proud, less selfish. The consequences arising from the continual accumulation of public debts in other countries ought to admonish us to be careful to prevent their growth in our own. The jaws of power are always open to devour, and her arm is always stretched out, if possible, to destroy the freedom of thinking, speaking, and writing. The only maxim of a free government ought to be to trust no man living with power to endanger the public liberty. Abuse of words has been the great instrument of sophistry and chicanery, of party, faction, and division of society. Laws for the liberal education of youth, especially of the lower class of people, are so extremely wise and useful, that, to a humane and generous mind, no expense for this purpose would be thought extravagant. The prospect is chilling, on every side. Gloomy, dark, melancholy, and dispiriting. When and where will the light spring up? As to the history of the Revolution, my ideas may be peculiar, perhaps singular. What do we mean by the Revolution? The war? That was no part of the Revolution, it was only an effect and consequence of it. We ought to consider what is the end of government, before we determine which is the best form. Upon this point all speculative politicians will agree, that the happiness of society is the end of government. While all other sciences have advanced, that of government is at a stand, little better understood, little better practiced now than 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. The turpitude, the inhumanity, the cruelty, and the infamy of the African commerce in slaves have been so impressively represented to the public by the highest powers of eloquence that nothing that I can say would increase. I read my eyes out and can't read half enough. The more one reads the more one sees we have to read. The right of a nation to kill a tyrant, in cases of necessity, can no more be doubted, than to hang a robber, or kill a flea. But killing one tyrant only makes way for worse, unless the people have sense. Without religion this world would be something not fit to be mentioned in polite company, I mean hell. The moment the idea is admitted into society, that property is not as sacred as the law of God, and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence. If thou shalt not covet. I had heard my father say that he never knew a piece of land run away or break. Let the human mind loose. It must be loose. It will be loose. Superstition and dogmatism cannot confine it. My fixed principle never to be the tool of any man, nor the partisan of any nation, would forever exclude me from the smiles and favors or courts. Nip the shoots of arbitrary power in the bud, is the only maxim which can ever preserve the liberties of any people. Power always sincerely, conscientiously, de très bonne foi, believes itself right. Power always thinks it has a great soul and vast views, beyond the comprehension of the weak. I always consider the settlement of America with reverence and wonder, as the opening of a grand scene and design in Providence, for the illumination of the ignorant and the emancipation of the slavish part of mankind all over the earth. America is a great unwieldy body. Its progress must be slow. It is like a large fleet sailing under convoy. The fleetest sailors must wait for the dullest and slowest. Like a coach and six, the swiftest horses must be slackened and the slowest quickened, that all may keep an even pace. While our country remains untainted with the principles and manners which are now producing desolation in so many parts of the world, while she continues sincere, and incapable of insidious and impious policy, we shall have the strongest reason to rejoice our local destination. But should the people of America once become capable of that deep simulation towards one another, and towards foreign nations, which assumes the language of justice and moderation,